All right, before we get to the Lamar Jackson stuff, because it's the biggest story in sports right now. There's a lot of stuff to get to there. I think it's obviously super interesting. The Dolphins did say that they are not going to be pursuing him. So I asked David Cantor yesterday, NFL super agent, if he believes Chris Grier when Grier says that Tua is their guy. Yesterday was a pretty positive step toward believing Chris Grier. And now granted, they can't go after Lamar Jackson until the moment that the draft ends, actually. It seems like a pretty archaic rule because the Dolphins don't have their own they don't have a first-round pick, let alone their own first-round pick this coming draft. And if you don't have a first-round pick this draft and the next draft, then you can't negotiate with Lamar Jackson because a trade would cost you your next 2 first-round picks. That's weird because you would think, all right, why does it have to be the next 2 first-round picks? Why can't it be just 2 first-round picks? Why does it have to be your own first-round pick? Why can't it be a first-round pick that you got from another team? I don't know. That seems archaic. But the Dolphins legitimately cannot negotiate with Lamar Jackson until after the draft. All right, we'll get right back to that. But I want to tell you guys about our newest sponsor, Broward Meat and Fish. I've been telling you about Broward Meat and Fish. It is a full-on supermarket. You see the name Broward Meat and Fish, ZASLOW. You've been telling me about Broward Meat and Fish, but what if I want more than meats and more than fish? That's why I'm sending you to Broward Meat and Fish. If you love good food, you are in for a treat right now. We all want the best quality when we're prepping our next meal. Broward Meat and Fish, your one-stop shop, not just for meat, fish, but produce, full selection of groceries. I did a full shop there this past weekend at the grand opening at the new Margate location. Frozen foods, freshly prepared hot food, deli meats. They'll make you that boar's head sub, wine, cheeses, so much more. That's right. Everything you're looking for is at Broward Meat and Fish. I was there over the weekend at the new Margate location. There's one by me right here, too, in Pembroke Pines. You can go to browardmeatandfish.com. Check out the location nearest you. I was there repping Johnny Cuba. I was there this weekend repping Johnny Cuba, official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0. Broward Meat and Fish. They got that Johnny Cuba picante sauce with the finest Jamaican peppers. We were doing giveaways there. People were snatching those Johnny Cuba picante sauce, hot sauce. Oh my God, people loved it. But anyway, Broward Meat and Fish, I can get everything I need. The butchers, the fishmongers, they're at full-service meat and seafood counters. They're going to prepare your selection exactly the way you want it. Just tell them. They're going to do it for you right there in front of your eyes. You get the perfect cut and the freshest flavor and quality. And here's something that we also love, obviously, about Broward Meat and Fish. They have specialized in serving the Caribbean and Latin community in South Florida for almost 30 years now. So you know they know what we want. They offer all the products that remind us of where we come from. The shelves are stocked with all kinds of international brands. Jamaica, Haiti, Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, Peru. You're getting the flavor you love at Broward Meat and Fish. BrowardMeatandFish.com. Make sure you find the location nearest you. And like I said, beautiful new location in Margate. Grand opening was this past weekend. Hey, good opportunity as well to tell you about the official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0. You guys know that's Johnny Cuba. It's a lifestyle brand, Johnny Cuba. European roots, a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. Pick up a 6-pack at your local Broward Meat and Fish. Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. That's right. I love it when you send me the pictures of the video. My man Chris sent me a few days ago, cracked open his first ever Johnny. He was like, ZASLOW, this is delicious. This is how I'm spending my Saturday night now. I got a 6-pack of Johnny right here. Thank you so much. You don't have to thank me, all right? I love good beer. You love good beer. And that's why I'm setting you up. Pick up a 6-pack of Johnny Cuba. Remember, always drink responsibly. Send me a pic or video on Instagram. I'm at ZASLOWJ. I'll post it there in my stories. I love doing that. My man Juan loves seeing that also. And of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. All right. So let's get to the big story in sports. It's on my television right now. Which team needs to pursue Lamar Jackson the most? So we find out yesterday afternoon, right? Lamar Jackson, franchise tag. It's the franchise tag where he can sign it. I think it gets him like $32.5 million next year. There's no way he plays under it. But now he's also allowed to negotiate with other teams. And it's like he's a restricted free agent. If he signs an offer sheet with another team, the Ravens could say, okay, peace out. And then that team has to give the Ravens 2 first-round picks. Or the Ravens can match it. And then he stays. All right, so the Ravens are in total control. I do think it's an archaic rule, how it has to be 2 first-round picks, not only the next 2 years, but it has to be your own original first-round pick. And that's why a team like the Dolphins is not even allowed to negotiate with him until after the draft, where it may be too late. I mean, the Dolphins already came out and said, we are not going to pursue him. I find it hard to believe if the draft passes, he hasn't signed with anyone, and then he comes to the Dolphins and says, listen, this is what I'm asking for. I'm dropping my price significantly to come play for you. Are you still not interested in pursuing? I have a hard time believing the Dolphins would pass. I'm a Tua guy, and I'd like the Dolphins to pursue Lamar Jackson. This isn't, it's not the Dolphins going after Aaron Rodgers or the Dolphins going after Garoppolo or even the Dolphins going after Derek Carr. It's Lamar Jackson. I'd be totally in on the Dolphins pursuing Lamar Jackson. But it's weird that you got a bunch of teams that are allowed to negotiate with him right now. Dolphins aren't. That are straight up coming out publicly and saying, we're not in the Lamar Jackson business. That part is weird. That part's strange. And it's especially strange that teams are so publicly out on Lamar Jackson, yet had no problem flirting with Deshaun Watson, who seems like he's a scumbag. Lamar Jackson, by all accounts, seems like a great dude. Is it collusion? Maybe. But I think, and the collusion comes from the Deshaun Watson contract. We know all the owners are mad at Jimmy Haslam, Browns owner, for paying that contract because now every quarterback potentially is going to want that or more, like Lamar Jackson is doing right now. And teams are angry. Owners are angry with the Browns, with the Haslams for doing that. So did they get together at the owners' meetings? Did they get together a long time ago? And all decided, along with Steve Bisciotti, owner of the Ravens, said, we're all going to stand together. We got to cool off the spending here when it comes to the quarterbacks. Do not offer Lamar Jackson that Deshaun Watson deal. Is it possible that happened? It's possible. It's collusion. Like, that's illegal. It's collusion. But I think there's 2 things at work here. I think Lamar Jackson is likely being unreasonable. Apparently, the Ravens offered $250 million with $133 million guaranteed. He wants all $250 guaranteed. I think the Watson contract obviously screwed everything up. And I think Jackson not having an agent is likely complicating things, especially now. We'll get to that in a second. I think it's both. I think the owners have decided we can't allow this. Has it been spoken? I don't know. That would be collusion. I think the owners have decided we can't allow this. And I think Lamar Jackson thinks the Watson deal is the standard now, which it's not. The Watson deal is bullshit. The Watson deal is phony baloney. The Watson deal is a total outlier from a poorly run franchise, Cleveland Browns, that a well-run franchise. I hate the Ravens, but the Ravens are a really well-run franchise. A poorly run franchise does what the Browns did to get Watson. A well-run franchise says, yeah, that contract's bullshit. That's an outlier. We're not paying you that. And I think there's a similarity to what happened in the NBA this past offseason with Rudy Gobert. So Rudy Gobert was traded from Utah to Minnesota for what included 5 first-round draft picks. 5 unprotected first-round draft picks. And that, it was a bad deal then, and now when you see Minnesota stink still, it might be an all-time bad deal. Horrendous deal. But Minnesota did that because that's what Rudy Gobert was worth to them. That doesn't mean he's worth that to everyone. if Rudy Gobert wanted to be traded to the Sixers weren't going to give 5 first-round picks. They have Joel Embiid. He's not worth that to them. Rudy Gobert was worth 5 first-round picks to Minnesota. That doesn't mean that's his value everywhere around the league. Deshaun Watson was worth $250 million guaranteed to Cleveland. He's not worth that to the other teams. He was worth it to Cleveland because he didn't want to go there. They had to make him an offer he couldn't refuse. So that's what he was worth to Cleveland. Also, going back to Gobert, Kevin Durant. If Kevin Durant requested a trade in the offseason, which he was, all right, well, Rudy Gobert just went for 5 first-round picks. Kevin Durant's a lot better than Rudy Gobert. What's he worth then? If Gobert just went 5 first-round picks, Durant must be worth 10 first-round picks. Even though that's not allowed. You can't trade that many. But Durant must be worth 10 first-round picks. No. Just because Gobert was worth that to Minnesota doesn't mean the next guy, in this case Durant, is worth double or triple that because he's better. That's what he was worth to that team. And similarly here, Deshaun Watson was worth that to Cleveland. Lamar Jackson is a lot better than Deshaun Watson. Maybe not a lot better, but let's just say it for argument's sake. Lamar Jackson is a lot better than Deshaun Watson. He must be worth $1 billion. No. Watson was worth that to Cleveland. That doesn't mean that Jackson is worth that to everyone else now. It's not an apples to apples comparison. Now here's why not having an agent is a problem now. Was it a problem leading up to this? Maybe, maybe not. But it's a problem now. Because now, Lamar Jackson's agent, his stepmother, is allowed to negotiate with 31 other NFL teams. 31 other NFL teams who she has no relationship with. Why would she have no relation? How does she have no relationship with them? Well, she has one client, her stepson, Lamar Jackson. She hasn't been able to, she's not allowed to talk to any of these other teams while her son is stepson is under contract with the Ravens. She's talked to the Ravens. She has a relationship with the Ravens. She has not been allowed to speak with any of these other teams. She has no relationship with these other teams because her only client has always been under contract with the Ravens. So now she is stepping into an arena that she has zero experience and zero relationships. Now, you could say, hey, not having an agent up until now, not that big a deal. Now it's a big deal. Now she's stepping into an area where she doesn't know anyone. Do they trust her? Does she trust them? She's never even met these people. She's never talked to them about contracts. Other agents, they have multiple clients. You got relationships with every team. She has no relationship with a team not named Baltimore Ravens because she has one client, her stepson. Now not having an agent is likely a very big problem. Now, overall, like I said, I think it's probably both. I think there may be some collusion going on here with the owners. But overall, I think it's more about Lamar Jackson being unreasonable. Because if there were collusion, I still believe there would be one owner. There'd be one owner willing to break rank from the other owners if it meant winning a Super Bowl. Like, are you okay with the other owners hating you and calling you a piece of shit and saying you're dishonest and you stab them in the back if you're holding up the Lombardi trophy? Would you be willing to break rank for that? I think so. I believe at least one owner would be willing to break rank if it meant winning a Super Bowl. And if that doesn't happen, then it's because presumably Lamar's being unreasonable. We'll see. But I would also make the point, teams were willing to bring in super toxic Deshaun Watson. You got teams publicly saying they are not pursuing Lamar Jackson when you had teams who were pursuing very publicly, including the Dolphins, super toxic Deshaun Watson. Oh, it must be collusion then, ZASLOW. No. Watson wasn't being unreasonable in his contract demands. Cleveland was ruled out of the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, and then they came over the top with an offer he could not refuse. Who knows what the most guaranteed money offered before it was? Maybe it was like $110, $120 million. Then Cleveland comes in. I know you already said you're not going to play for us, but what if we offered you $250 million all guaranteed? It's an offer he couldn't refuse. I don't want to play for you, but yeah, that money changes my mind. That's why teams were still pursuing super toxic Deshaun Watson. He wasn't being unreasonable with this contract. And that only goes to my point of, yeah, it's about winning a Super Bowl. You're willing to go after a super toxic player in Deshaun Watson if it means winning a Super Bowl. And it's why I think there's not necessarily collusion going on here, because I do think that you would have an owner willing to break rank if it meant winning a Super Bowl. But no one is doing that because I think Lamar Jackson may be being unreasonable with his contract demands. Maybe. But I think that's an important distinction to consider. I also think we're overlooking kind of a big detail. So the way it works with the NFL, and maybe with the other sports too, I'm not sure. But the way it works with the NFL, if you guarantee a player a certain amount of money, if it's over a certain amount of money, I think maybe it's over, if it's over $50 million. If you're guaranteeing a player more than $50, I think it is, $million in his contract, that money needs to be put in escrow. Meaning you have to prove you can afford that. You can't just guarantee $1 billion and then, well, where's the money? Or maybe you sell the team and the new owner doesn't have that kind of money. You have to put the money in escrow. That's part of what pissed off the owners with the Deshaun Watson contract. The Haslam family, one of the wealthiest owners in the league. Jerry Jones probably the wealthiest. But other than that, maybe the wealthiest. He was able to put $250 million in escrow for Watson. Most owners don't have that kind of money liquid. Most owners can't just say, all right, here's $250 million. There you go. Most owners don't have that. So he's asking for something that is not physically possible of a lot of owners. They don't have $250 million today to put in escrow. That's just a fact. And I think a lot of people are overlooking that's the way this works in the NFL. You have to, you're not paying him that money right now, but you got to put it away in an escrow account. And most owners don't have that liquid. I feel like we're overlooking that. But I do think this is a smart play by the Ravens. I do. The Ravens are in total control. If the Ravens don't want to lose Lamar Jackson, they won't lose Lamar Jackson. Go see if someone else is willing to give you what you're asking. We believe no one is. We don't believe anyone will. And see, they can't let him walk. Let's say someone gives, and they're not going to. He's going to be back with the Ravens. They can't let him walk because you're only getting 2 first-round picks in return. If you just decided, if he's under contract and you just decided to trade him, you'd probably get 4 or 5 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson. So if you just let him walk, only getting 2 first-round picks in return, terrible deal for the Ravens. Terrible. And it's why they're never going to let him walk. Bad franchises do what the Browns did. Well-run franchises do what the Ravens are doing here. And a well-run franchise is not going to hold on to a player who they can get 4 or 5 first-round picks for and then let him walk for 2. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He'll be back in Baltimore. But it sucks if you're a Ravens fan. Because if you're a Ravens fan, you don't care about any of this bullshit. You don't care about the money. It's not your money. What do you care? You just want them to pay him and keep him and win Super Bowls. If you're a Ravens fan, it sucks. So, is there collusion going on? Maybe. I think it's more about Lamar Jackson being unreasonable. And I think we're going to see that now. I don't think any other team's going to give him what he wants. And I think that, I've been saying it forever, I think that Deshaun Watson contract is bullshit. It's not a real contract. Just because that's what Watson, well, it is real, but just because that's what Watson was worth to Cleveland doesn't mean he was worth that to everyone else. Because he clearly wasn't. He didn't even want to go to Cleveland. Let's get to big deal or not a big deal. Come on now. Big deal or not a big deal. Every show, as we wrap things up here on a Wednesday, we get you caught up on things that maybe we didn't get to earlier in the show. Last night, big night in the NBA. Pau Gasol, he had his jersey retired. All right, that's cool. You go look at the list of Laker greats who've had their jersey retired. You got some massive names up there. Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, Magic, Kobe, Shaq, James Worthy, and now Pau Gasol. Good for him. How about Jimmy Butler, who played with Pau in Chicago? Jimmy Butler flying out to the West Coast yesterday to be there for his guy, Pau Gasol.
Hey, why are you here?
What's this guy's name? Pau? I'm here because of Pau. Obviously, man. Congratulations to my brother, Pau. Love you, man. Much deserved Hall of Fame coming soon. We all know it. Appreciate you for having me, my brother.
Love it. He surprised him. He rolled up on Pau and his wife courtside, said hello, and then went up and watched the game. He had his Pau Gasol jersey in the suite. Obviously, I guess he flew back after the game. Maybe he flew back in the morning. I don't know. He'll be ready to go tonight as the Heat take on Cleveland. Love it. That's a big deal. Great. And I like that the Heat allow him to do that. The Heat are good about stuff like that. You remember years ago when Zydrunas Ilgauskas had his jersey retired in Cleveland? The team allowed LeBron and Coach Rothstein to fly in there away from the team and go be there for the ceremony. Very, very cool. Big deal or not a big deal? So the New York Jets, they flew to go meet with Aaron Rodgers. They're all in on Rodgers. They want Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, you may remember, this is an interesting wrinkle. Aaron Rodgers, you may remember, he's anti-vax. And that's his prerogative. You're allowed to be stupid. But how about Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, is the heir to the Johnson & Johnson fortune? That's their business. That's their family business. I'm going to go big deal. That seems like there may be a conflict of interest there with Aaron Rodgers. Big deal or not a big deal? So I get a message yesterday from my cousin up in Montreal. He's 16 or 17, I think it is. And big basketball fan. Raptors fan. The Raptors are like Canada's team. They're the only team there. Big Raptors fan. Sends me a big Kyle Lowry fan. Oh my God. The worst. Sends me a video of he sends me a link on Instagram of a Raptors reporter, a Raptors beat guy who made like a video, like a TikTok video, what have you, about how Heat fans are crazy with their hatred for Kyle Lowry. And he plays the clip of me on the Levitard show saying Kyle Lowry, my least favorite Heat player of all time, which of course is true. So shout out to the reporter. I love it that you used my clip there. And yes, I'm repping Heat fans here. I'm repping 305. Kyle Lowry, least likable Heat player of all time. By the way, he's out again tonight, to nobody's surprise. Kyle Lowry, Heat and Cavaliers. Shout out there to my cousin as well, my cousin Sam, for sending that to me. He loves Kyle Lowry, loves the Raptors. Asked me to take it easy on Kyle Lowry a little bit because he's 37 years old. Listen, you can't sign a $90 million contract wearing a ski mask, all right? He's stealing money. I don't care what his age is. I'm going big deal. Big deal or not a big deal? So how about this? I got one more for you. AEW Dynamite tonight, 8 p.m. on TBS. AEW Revolution was this past weekend. Great show. Make sure you catch up on the most recent episode, ZASLOW Show 2.0. It's still real to me, as we did an AEW Revolution recap show on Monday night. Go check that out. It's not dated. It's evergreen. You can go listen to that. Wardlow won the TNT Championship. And between then and now, his rental car was broken into. His bag with all of his ring gear was stolen, including the TNT Championship. So some piece of shit is out there right now. Some thief is out there right now. Not Kyle Lowry, a different thief. Some thief is out there with Wardlow's TNT Championship belt. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Hate to hear that. Might be bad news for Powerhouse Hobbs tonight. Wardlow's going to take it out on him. They're fighting for the now missing AWTNT Championship. That's tonight. That's a big deal. And finally, one more for you. Tonight, Hard Rock Live. Your boy's going to see Greta Van Fleet. I'm very excited to see them. That's a big deal. I know a lot of people bust on Greta Van Fleet's. Oh, they're a Led Zeppelin ripoff. They sound just like Led Zeppelin. Good. I wish more bands sounded like Led Zeppelin. That's a good thing. The more bands that sound like Led Zeppelin, the better. That's a big deal, Greta Van Fleet tonight. And that is another edition of Big Deal or Not a Big Deal. Yes. All right. So we got the Heat tonight. Can we start the show tomorrow with the Heat catching a nice home win against the Cavaliers? Is that possible? Panthers are off until Friday. They got Chicago at FLA Live Arena as the season-long 7-game homestand continues. Thanks to everybody who listened today. Make sure you like, you rate, you comment, you do all that good stuff. Thanks to everybody who helped put together a great show today. Excellent work by everybody involved. We'll talk to you on ZASLOW Show 2.0 tomorrow. You know what that means.